We are not the same. There are 4 psychological types competing for fitness. There is a war in our psychology. Hi. We have 4 different types of psychologies with different structures, contents and mechanisms. Like there are different species in biology, we can discriminate between different psyches, PSY, in psychology. A good place to start might be what I call our psychological means of production. This term is borrowed from sociology and economy, and the most basic means of production in our psychology is our fantasy. Our fantasy is the basis for our imagination, dreaming, creativity, our wishes, our playfulness, and it is the basis of our relationships and intimacy, and even more so of our symbolic thinking. In the last conversation, I talked of the first ADON, 10,000 years ago. With him, the 4 types of psychologies were created. The first one is the ADON. He has full ownership of the psychological means of production and exclusiveness to an untamed, egoistic fantasy, which he can actually realize. Unfortunately, the content of this fantasy is power and wealth, and we see the birth of greed, of conquest, and of objectification. With time passing, this fantasy became very one-dimensional and fixated. The second type is the slave. The slave has no fantasy, no psychological means of production. They were rooted out by the social structure of which he is a part. And the third kind is the commoner, what we call the middle class, the majority of us. The commoner was given a pseudo-fantasy by the ADON, a partial, synthesized illusion of a fantasy, a limited horizon for actualization, like individual expression by consumerism and social networking, or the idea of an afterlife. This pseudo-fantasy is not created by us. It was coerced upon us by an ever-sophisticating technology. Now, these 3 psyches, types of psychologies, are mutually dependent. They are symbiotic, and they have lost their capacity for fantasy. They are fixated in this castrating bondage. The amazing thing is the appearance of the number 4 psyches, the 4th type of psychology. We will call it !human. Since the appearance of the first ADON, a counter-psychological type was created, a psynome in which fantasy is preserved, capable of creating and inventing our lives. The ADONs of all times have done all in their power to eradicate these people, these artists, philosophers, movements, but miraculously they have not succeeded, and this type of a psyches, !human, continued to exist, to reinvent itself, to reincarnate itself. In today's terms, the !human is a humanistic, existential, collective and cosmic psychology. The fantasy is a combination of individual and communal content. Now, with every person in the world, there is a combination of the 4 types of psychologies, the 4 psyches. There is a difference in the degrees and the dominance of each one, and there is a continuous dynamic and potential in that. There is a continuous evolutionary competition for the fitness of survival in the changing environments of which we are a part. On the one side is the ADON and the cluster of 3 Psycies with fixated fantasy, and on the other side is the exclamation human. Now, without a doubt, the ADON had and still has the upper hand. But the amazing thing is that this competition of psychodiversity is going on for millennia. Exclamation human is not extinct, and the tables can turn in every moment. There is much psychological and fantasy work to be done, and we'll do our best efforts to continue with this work in coming conversations. So we'll end here today. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Make sure to subscribe. See you next time.